Dedicated podcast meeting brilliant minds and looking at the world around them. How do they 360 themselves and 360 the world? Jamie Neal, the host, asks many questions about their mindset and how they fundamentally operate their world and the world around them. Here at 360 Yourself, we are very proud and honoured to be partnered with General Assembly. We embrace this with open arms to a new adventure. General Assembly is a global tech education company focused on the most in-demand areas today. So that's anything from UX, digital marketing, coding, data science, data analytics to travel writing and ethics. Our/their main goal is to get you where you want to be. You can find out more about them at ga.co online or across all socials at ga_London. We also encourage you to please rate and comment about us on Apple Podcasts. If you do enjoy what we bring to your ears, we'd love to hear about it. We're supported by General Assembly, and that's right, you can get a 25% discount for their services. Promo code is 360yourself25. The code will be valid up to £75 off any one of their classes, workshops and boot camps, and is valid until the 31st/08/2021. And is not applicable to GA's full-time, part-time or online circuit courses. Full T's and C's apply. Hey Daniel, how are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
Very well. So after chatting for about 20 minutes, we finally started the podcast. Because I know, because we're so similar in terms of energy. Sometimes you just get lost in conversation, and you're just like, oh, we actually should be doing a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, it's 17 hours later. We haven't really done anything yet.
I know. So tell me, what I always ask at this moment in time, the question will probably differ in the future, but what I like to ask is, we've had COVID, everyone's everywhere, everyone's working remotely. Where are you at this moment in time? Where are you talking from?
Great question. And isn't it hilarious that 2 years ago, we never would have thought to even ask this question? Yeah. It's just how much has changed in such a short space of time.
Yeah.
So I'm talking from my kitchen/office. Slash gym, or was slash gym.
But I love your office. You say it's your office, and then in the behind you, I just see all like alcohol, like a whole row of alcohol. Like, that's a really good office.
Well, classic London media guy. Like, you gotta know where your closest like gin and tonic is.
I swear, like years ago, I think it was like 5-6 years ago, I went to someone's office for some deal or something.
Right.
And they were like, do you want a drink? And I thought like a coffee or tea. And I was like, oh yeah, what do you have? And they're like, oh, we have Prosecco. And I was like, what do you mean you got Prosecco? Like, I stopped and she was like, yeah, we have Prosecco on tap. I was like,
that's the trend. That was the new trend, right? Like, Aperol Spritz for everyone. Did it feel like Mad Men? Did it feel like you're back in like Madison Avenue? Like a cigarette.
It really did. I thought I was so bougie, like sitting having a meeting and I got a Prosecco on tap.
I think, and we'll probably end up talking about this later on, but I think that comes down to culture and cultural workplaces and authenticity as an individual. I'm here for it. I just think alcohol, any kind of something like that is becoming, it would be terrible if you could offer you just never know where people are in their relationship with alcohol. And sometimes you might end up doing something inadvertently that is going to create a negative experience. But yeah. Prosecco on tap, also for me, it'll be a bit like, if there's Prosecco on tap, it'll be really hard to go for sparkling water every day. Just one. No, so I am sitting in my kitchen gym office in West London. we, at the beginning of the pandemic, was where I spent all of my time in a full-time role, working in the television industry. I was actually working for the Walt Disney Company at the time. I had been working for 21st Century Fox. Disney bought 2/3 of Fox. I came along with that deal and had I was running all of our communications for our television business, which included the launch of Disney Plus, which all happened, across Europe. So I worked on the global launch and then was leading the comms for the European launch, which all coincided with the European lockdowns, and it was intense.
But honestly, Disney Plus saved my life in COVID, and I think most people did. I watched so much Disney Plus over the first couple of months. It literally saved me. I was watching it so I'd be on Zoom with my friends watching the same film all together.
You see, and then 6 months later we did a feature group watch that you can literally do that and watch all at the same time. I think it was a really beautiful product that was simple to use, that looked great and was intuitive to work, and the content, you can't argue with the emotional connection people have to Star Wars, to National Geographic, to Disney content, to Pixar content and Marvel content. You can't argue that. And it definitely came at a point where people were needing some escapism, and it was a real wild ride. It was like being in a startup in a very old, established, 100-year-old media organization. And so I was there for a couple of years doing that. And then in April of this year, so April of 21, the pandemic definitely changed everybody's scenarios, some more than others. Some positively, some negatively, but there were lots of reorganizations happening at the Walt Disney Company, and there was a good chance that my role, because of changes that were happening in LA, was going to just be reduced in remit. And I had a very honest conversation with my boss, and we had a very positive, very kind, challenging conversation. And 3 weeks later, I left. And it was difficult, and it was emotional and painful, but also invigorating and scary. And so where I literally find myself now is just sitting in my kitchen. It's been about 3.5, 4 months.
And this is why we're having the podcast, because I said to you, I was like, this is a really good time to chat, when you're in between things. And I think a lot of the time, the normal, I put in normal quotation marks, of society has jumped from one job to another job to another job, with actually not allowing your time to think and go, what do I want to do? What I really want to do? Do I really want to work for someone else, or do I want to work for myself? What's the sort of mission-driven stuff that I want to work on?
I think that, I'll probably look back on this in time, and I'm so sorry if you can hear some weird scratching.
Put a note as well. So Daniel has a dog and cute puppy, and obviously he hasn't slept at all last night, and so we've got a bit of a moment. So he is looking at his dog underneath the table.
The puppy's having some issues. The puppy's 12 weeks old. He was never part of the plan. It's all happened quite serendipitously. Story about that, which we can come on to later, about how I ended up with this quite rare breed pedigree puppy.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story though, but a story that I would want in the future if I ever had a dog, when I get my dog as well. I'd be like, I want that. I want the same thing to happen to me.
It's slightly classic me in a certain way, but no. So the pandemic definitely, I think, put pressures on us all, both physically and mentally, in ways that we hadn't realized. And I don't know whether in a couple of years' time I'm going to reflect on the decisions that I made and the conversations that I engaged in and drove, and whether or not I'll regret it or not. But I think, I went to university for a whole week, and have worked every day since I was 18, and really hustled. And I'm really proud of kind of what I've achieved in my career. I'm really proud of the stuff that I've done and kind of where I've got to. I'm just a kid from a small town in Yorkshire, but not to say that I'm anything successful now. But as I look at my life, as I look at what I think success is, I feel quite comfortable with what I've achieved. But this really has, the decision that I made in the spring has very much pushed me off a cliff. And sometimes, some days I feel like I'm swan diving in a very beautiful kind of calm, serene. I know exactly what I'm doing. These are the conversations I'm having. These are kind of, I'm narrowing down X, Y, and Z. I feel really, really good about it. And then the next day, I'm kind of like free falling, like my arms are going everywhere.
Don't
like,
worry. We were talking this beforehand. Like I feel exactly the same thing, and I think a lot of people do though. Some days you like it's. I always reference the song "Life Is a Roller Coaster," like "Life is a roller coaster," because
classic.
Honestly, because it literally, the lyrics really speak to me. That some days you're really feeling on high, the next day, for no apparent reason, it could be nothing in life that has really ever changed. It's just your energy and your spaces sort of shifted, then you feel not so great, and you're like, well, why am I not feeling great? Because yesterday I felt really great, and nothing's actually changed from yesterday to today.
Exactly. And it could be because you didn't get any sleep last night,
yeah.
or it could be because you watched a film or you read a book, or someone said something that just upset you a little bit, or you just, your energy that day, your hormones that day, your blood sugar that day is just having an effect. And I think, I mean, that's complete tangent, but it's something that I learned very quickly early on in my career, because I fundamentally work with people. I mean, we all work with people, right? Really, that's kind of what we do. But about how different experiences and the same thing can impact people in completely different ways. I remember there's a guy who I adore with all of my heart, and he's super smart and super brilliant and going on to do some amazing things. And he was junior on the team. I was kind of I was like account director, as an agency, I was account director. He came on as an AA, and we became a bit of a team. But I knew that if I didn't have a snack bar in my pocket at all times, we would do long days, long events, yada, yada, yada. I just needed to make sure he ate, because if he didn't, there was an issue.
Oh, wow.
Food doesn't do that with me. I can just go a whole day without eating and not really thinking about it. It just doesn't affect me that way.
Yeah,
but
me too.
It's just funny how people react to things in different ways.
It is, isn't it? Because like, some people get really hungry and they can't, like, I mean, I can...
Red mist.
Yeah, for me, like I could, I mean, this is obviously not very good, obviously sort of like fasting, but like I can work from like 7 a.m. and then go until like 2, 3 o'clock p.m. and then start getting hungry because my mind's so focused. But a lot of people, they go, it gets to a certain point, they just can't work. Like, so but I have to be really empathetic when I'm working in teams. Okay, this is, oh no, and go, this is, okay, we need to like make sure we have structured breaks and lunches, because I really understand that people actually need their breaks, but I personally don't need it, but I have to be really empathetic and have more of a self-awareness. And it seems like you did as well with your friend, making sure he had his little treats.
For sure. And like it then became a topic of discussion that I would just talk to everyone about, because I just think it's really interesting. People see things from different points of view, but I have some friends who don't need to eat, but they just need to know when the food is coming. So if they know when it's coming, they don't worry about it. It's not a case of if I don't eat, there'll be a blood sugar drop, or there'll be a kind of, it'll affect mood or whatever. It's just, they just need to know a schedule. Okay, cool. But do you know what? Some people like beetroot, some people don't. Some people like to ski, some people don't. Like, we're all different. And I think, I mean, especially in the career, or the area that I work in communications, which is fundamentally about connecting with people, whether that is stakeholders, journalists, whoever, I am trying to impart a message, usually on behalf of a third party, the organization I work for, whether we're trying to sell them, it's usually about selling something, TV show, a service, or a person. In my previous lives, I've, wrecked individuals. You have to find those connections with people. You've got to find how people tick. And you talked about it earlier, just about empathy. I think that empathy is fundamentally one of the most important skills a leader can have or should have.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's necessarily valued as much as perhaps it should be.
It's funny because we had a creative director on, Bunny, on yesterday, and we spoke about that as well. Like, when you are working for a company or you're working on behalf of someone or a product, you have to be you have to think about so many different angles from so many different audience perspective and how people are going to view that. And if you don't have empathy, how are you self-aware about how it might react with people? And so I think my question was to him is like, to be a really great self-aware creative or a leader, how much empathy do you actually need? Because essentially you have to be really empathetic to, if you're selling a product or you're selling a TV show, you have to understand how it might be perceived by people, and that's empathy.
Right.
But if you don't have that much empathy, can you be really good at your job? That's another question.
I know. I think that's a great question, and it's funny you talk about it in relation to product or in service. And I haven't really thought about it like that before. You are 100% right. The way that I've kind of always seen it or have experienced it is really in that soft skill people management side. Like the smallest company I've ever worked for was an agency called Freud's, which is a really brilliant PR agency. Well, I think they're really brilliant PR agency.
No, they are really good agency.
And that's about 250 people, and that was, everybody. Even you might not know everybody's name, but you were like, okay, they work in that team or whatever. But that was the smallest company. But really, Microsoft, BBC, Disney, Fox, they're all like thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So, and of course, I would work a lot with leadership and a lot with exec teams and whatnot. And so I really see empathy as more of not an internal comms tool, but as how are you perceived as a leader, and how do you engage your workforce, and how do your workforce reflect or respect you, or how do you get the best results out of your people? What does culture mean? And so I really see it from that perspective, but I think you're 100% right. It can't just be about communication through team management. And perhaps that's just how I see the world in terms of just connecting people. I don't know whether that's just how I see the world. It has to come hand in hand with product and externally how you're going to be seen and how you're going to be valued. You are right with that. What was Bernie's answer to that?
I can't remember now. I think it was like from his perspective, from his opinion, that you sort of have to be empathetic to the consumer, to the person you're working with. There obviously are people who are less empathetic, who are still good at their job, but they have people around them that are more empathetic. It's sort of like surround yourself with people who have better skill set. But
absolutely,
but essentially, I think from what I remember, we both agreed that you have to be empathetic to work with direct consumers or selling product, because it is all about just thinking about someone else's opinion and how they're going to view it and perspective. So
literally, speaking of empathy, I'm watching my puppy, who, I know we said this already, he didn't have a great night, is having a few issues this morning. Just had to let him out because he needed to go outside for a little moment. I
love it. I love it.
Empathy, watching body language, figuring out what this tiny little fluffy thing means.
So I've got a question for you then. So where did you see yourself at the age you are now when you were younger?
22?
Yeah, no, but when you were younger, like where did you? Because obviously, I think I talked to a lot of people, and especially I spoke about Bunny with this as well. Like we were talking about. I don't want to keep bringing him in, but. It's just from yesterday. We were talking about the idea of like curated careers and how we plan things, but sometimes they don't. From the outside, it looks like it's so planned, but from the inside, it's just really good opportunities that you've jumped on. So, because obviously you were like a brilliant cog in a really massive company. Did you see yourself working as the vice president of communications at Disney, like years ago, or was it just like
it?
I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by you envisioned yourself.
It's a really great question, and I will try to not monologue for too long. I think there's something in that your guest yesterday talked about in terms of a curated career. Yes, I envisaged myself to be in the position where I am now. And I have also just had a bit of a milestone age moment that we don't need to go into.
We definitely don't. That's why I was very curated when I asked that question.
No, which is very kind, very kind. Total vanity on my part. But yes, I definitely had an image of kind of what I wanted my career to be, but I didn't know what that was. It was very hard to articulate. Sometimes it's easier to say what you don't want than it is to say what you do want, whether that's because you just don't know, but you know what instinctively feels wrong, or whether or not it's because you're too scared to say what you want because in case it doesn't happen, or fear of failure, which I definitely has plagued me my career. I would say that my career, I've been doing this since I was 18. So a significant thing amount of time. Hi, buddy. I'm just going to take that stick out your mouth. Okay, good. The dog's back. The dog's back.
We're all okay. Back. Sorry, no panic.
Back. I made a decision that was actually quite defining at the time, and I didn't realize how defining it was. I just made the choice based on the information I had at the time, which was to leave university after a week of being at university. I did Freshers Week, I was done. And there was multiple reasons behind that. I didn't quite get the A-level results that I wanted, so I didn't quite get into the school that I wanted to get into. I wasn't ever really sure that I wanted to go to university. It's just what people did. Where I came from, the family background that I came from, I was very privileged in that perspective. It was kind of expected, but it just felt wrong. My gut instinct was, you're not in the right place. This is not what you want to do. And I guess I have really listened to my gut at most points in my career. So I left, and at that point, that was 1999, and I just turned 18. And I'm an August birthday, and so I literally just turned 18 and went to university. But I had already thought about, okay, what do I want to do? If I didn't go to university, what did I want to do? And I kind of had a bit of a plan B, in the fact that I had figured out that there was a exchange program, a year abroad type gap year thing that you could do at Walt Disney World in Florida. And so I came home. The timelines blur, but the long and the short of it is, within about 8 weeks, I had an interview, and within about 8 weeks after that, I was on a flight going to work in Florida. And at that point, they hired around 50 people a year, 50 to 100 people a year, kids between the ages of 18 and 23, most who were doing a year in industry as part of a tourism degree or a management degree or whatever, to work in one specific part of the theme park. And I think I realized at that point is, actually, you can achieve stuff. Doesn't have to necessarily be the correct route. Doesn't necessarily have to be what is not what I was about to say, what is expected.
Yeah, I guess
I don't want to be critical. No one ever expected me to go to university. No one. I never. Again, my family being really, really supportive. But just doing things differently can sometimes really pay off. And I think that's kind of how I have curated my career. I have zigged and zagged. I have sidestepped, and at points felt really unclear about where I was heading to. But as I sit here without a job in my kitchen,
but also that's okay though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's okay.
Yeah, and everything I did has got me to a place where I work in an industry that I never thought I would have the opportunity to get into, and I'm really proud of being in the entertainment kind of media, film, television industry. I've had the most incredible opportunity to work with the most amazing people and done really amazing things that you just don't expect to get an opportunity to do. And now I'm just really excited about what comes next, and having the confidence to say in April, now that doesn't quite work for me. And I think that we should have an honest conversation about what is the right next step for the business, for me. And I guess you can do that when you get to a certain level. Again, I don't want to...
But that's what I mean, though. I think you have more leverage than you potentially might think, because I think when you get to your level of expertise and you come to a level of mindfulness and where your headspace is, it's more like you determine the terms. You're like, okay, that's a really cool job, but it doesn't really work for me. I can take it or I leave it, and then I'll just kind of another week, another job will come my way, and then I'll yeah. So I think you have more leverage than you think.
And I think Disney is a very emotional place for me. So I worked for Disney for my first 8 years of my career. I went to Walt Disney World, came back. I was then worked in the stores in the north of England. I was going to come home, go to university, and then just fell into store management, and was young, but was able to because I was young and I didn't have kids and I had a car, and my district manager would be like, oh, okay, you're going to go and do 2 months in that store over there. Can you go and be the assistant manager in that store over there? And, you know, it worked. It was a really healthy relationship. I never particularly wanted to work in retail, but it was Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the only Disney thing that I could do in the North. And actually, what I learned in retail and retail management, you know, at one point I was running a store when I was 21, 22. I don't know if there were any of the store managers that were that age in the business, but you learn what branding is. You learn how to talk to the public. You learn about people skills and management. You know, I had people working for me who were 16, you know, they were Christmas temps to, you know, 65-year-old retirees that were just doing like a 4-hour-a-week job. So I did that for 8 years, and then moved down to London with Disney to work in the theme park team, the sales and marketing team. So leaving Disney at 24 was really hard. And I knew I had to go because I knew that I probably couldn't progress. And, you know, no one ever really leaves Disney because it's Disney.
It's Disney, yeah.
Disney one leaves. And so leaving was really emotional. And I always thought I'd leave to come back. I'd like go up a couple of runs, come back. It's like my home. And then I never did. And then I stopped thinking about it. And I always loved the company and I loved the content and I still love the films and the television series, and, you know, I'd watch what they were doing. They have obviously always been they've always been defining in the industry, whether that is theme parks, consumer products, whether that's experiences, whether that, you know, is television or film. You know, look what they did with the box office. Look at the Marvel franchise, like just genius. Bob Iger, wow, what an incredible run he had as CEO. So then when I was working for 21st Century Fox, and then the Disney transaction happened, it was actually 20 years. September 99 was my first job at Disney. And in September 19 was when I was officially announced as VP for comms for the television business in Europe. And I was like, this weird 20 years serendipitous. And it was weird. It was like I came home. It was.
I think you've also slightly manifested it as well. That's what I believe. Really? I think subconsciously you had it in your back of your brain, and eventually that I'll go back, but I don't know how it will happen. Yeah. But it will.
It was totally me that made Rupert sell.
Exactly. Yeah.
But there was definitely something about. There was definitely something serendipitous about it, and to come back and work back in the same office building I had been at when I first moved to London as like a whippersnapper 23-year-old. And there were still people in the building that I'd worked with, 15 years ago, 12 years ago. And to come back and to launch arguably the biggest entertainment launch in television, or the biggest seismic shift in television and film, but television really, streaming. Because content is ubiquitous. It doesn't matter whether it's film or television. That's just length, really, and narrative structure. But to come back and launch it, and to be such an integral part of that launch, will be something I will forever be really proud of. But when it came to a conversation about what next, or perhaps at the role, because I had quite a wide remit just because of the way that the restructure had happened, I then didn't want to make the decision to do a smaller role, to stay with a company that I fundamentally really respected, and making that decision to choose me and to bet on myself versus stay in a safe place. I could have stayed, the package wouldn't have changed.
But if you're an ambitious person though, why would you want to stay in the company but a smaller role? You want to, hopefully you want to get bigger and better and keep learning.
I mean, that's how I see the world. That works for me. It doesn't work for everyone, and that's not a disrespect to anyone. Some people, everybody thinks about values success or values their life or looks at their life differently. And I have plenty of friends and family who will say, work too hard, run too fast, try and fit too much in. And I miss out. I miss out on the family birthdays because I'm here, or I miss out on the dinner with mates because I had to work late because there was a call. But there were the choices that I made, and I did that collectively. I've done that collectively for I guess my whole career. And so having this moment to have some time out, to take a breath, to make a scary choice, to make the choice that maybe people wouldn't necessarily to leave. Why would you leave Disney? Why would you leave Disney Plus? Like, we're just about to start doing European commissioning about, we're going to start making TV shows from our markets in Europe exclusively with the service, which is very much a passion area of mine. Why would you leave? But I think there aren't many times that you get an opportunity to take a choice and make a decision like this. There aren't many companies that would have allowed me to do it like the way that they have. And I choose me.
I think that's what you should be choosing, you though. That's what you should be choosing. But I also don't understand. For me, it's an easy choice, because if you've been doing a certain role and then they've asked you to go backwards and get a smaller role and something you've already done, you're not learning. You're just doing the same job but smaller, I think, essentially. So you won't as fulfilled.
I think. Yes, that was my perception of the scenario that was presented to me, or that was discussed. I think there's still a lot of fallout from pandemic and from structure and all those things. But the information that was given to me was that my role was likely going to be altered and reduced and focused in certain areas. And you're right. That's just not really kind of where I'm at. And it, it wasn't a negative thing, and it wasn't a difficult. It was emotional, because it was a bit like, it was a shame, just a shame, really.
But I think a lot of people have gone through this, though. I don't want to like continue to talk about kind of that, but it's important to realize that you're not alone, and throughout the whole pandemic, there was so many jobs that were lost, so many companies that were restructuring. And roles were getting smaller. People were giving up their salaries to supplement other people and stuff. So it was like a whole kind of cultural shift.
Industries that completely collapsed. Completely collapsed. I have friends and family who are professional musicians. I have friends and and family that are in the hospitality industry. My favorite members club, H Club, has one of my top people that I love. H Club is gone. It's gone. Oh,
and now I've only got Soho House. No, but
I feel like we should just replay. I definitely want to catch myself and just say, I am so aware of how fortunate and lucky and just fortunate and lucky I am to be in the position I'm in, to have had the experience through COVID and the exit that I had and the way that it worked and all those things. So fortunate, and there are so many people that didn't. My heart goes out to all those people who chose a career or a vocation or a passion, whatever they followed, and something that you have no control over can derail you and make you reassess and force you to change. Change is hard at the best of times, but when it comes at a point that you're not ready for it, I think that makes it. It makes it even.
Or when as I was saying to someone, it's where change is very difficult when it's not your decision, it's your space telling you to change. That's really difficult, because you come to a point where you go, I'm not fulfilled, I need to change because I made the decision. But when it's your space saying, actually, you need to change, you're going like, well, potentially I don't want to change just yet. Like, you're having this whole sort of dilemma. But when it's actively your control, but obviously we don't really have much control in our life. The only control you have is the way that you react to situations. I think that's really difficult.
That's the key. That and it's very easy to sit here on my kitchen bench and my table with my bar behind me and talk about. Yes, it's all about.
I wish I was there doing this podcast with a gin in my hand to just like we're having a good.
Okay, got a whole lot. Patron, anyone? But no, you 100% have full control over how you feel and how you react to a situation, and it's really annoyingly simple. You do, and I can't tell you that I sit here and get this right every time, because my husband will tell you that I don't react very well. You have full control over how you can react, and I don't sit here, or how you can control. You have full control over your emotions, your full suite of emotions, and I can't sit here and say that I get that right every time. And I basically made a joke and said my husband will definitely tell you I don't always react very well or correctly, but it's so annoyingly simple. It's true. You can control, or you have the ability to control your response to a situation, your response to a conversation, a situation, an event, and it's really hard to do that. But I think that and this kind of goes back to the point you made a bit earlier about empathy being a really underrated leadership skill. Being self-aware and having emotional intelligence for yourself and for others, I also think is a very important and really powerful tool that you can have in your tool chest, that will help you be, again, however you want to define, successful.
I'd love to know what's your define. Well, let me rephrase that. What do you define success for you personally now compared to what you thought success was when you were just coming into your career?
I guess, I mean, in the immediate right now, my level of success is, can I make my dog pee outside for the full day? That is my immediate level of success.
I love that.
Just right now, on this day, that is my level of success. I think I definitely used to measure success in title, responsibility, and I guess material things in my early 20s, because I didn't have any of those three things. Not that I have a lot of it now. I mean, I have no title now, other than unemployed. Is that a title? I would define success now for myself as a place where I'm adding, how am I adding value?
I love it. I love that word, value. Oh, good value, good word.
It's not about title, it's not about money. Those things are nice, but it's how am I, I mean, this slightly is midlife crisis. How am I making an impact? I don't need to change the world, but I think, how am I adding value? How am I making an impact? That's how I will continue to define success for myself. I mean, ask me in 3 months, 6 months time whether or not I still think that.
No.
And how I'm doing on the toilet training with the dog.
No, but I also like the first thing about success you said about just like the simple things about getting your dog to pee outside. Like, we always sometimes profoundly envision success as such a massive thing. Like, right. But actually it's the daily little things of success, like getting your dog to pee, or I went out and I can run 5K every single day. Like, it's those simple things. And I think people think of success and they always think of like the bigger picture rather than the smaller things. And I think if it's like, there's a really great TED talk about this, about accomplishing achievements, but in small doses. So if you want to run, if you want to like, so I don't know, a jumper, just think about it as like 5 minutes per day you're going to sew the jumper, rather than thinking it's going to take 200 hours. And I think that idea that those small little successes of, I'm going to make my dog pee outside, or I'm going to walk for 10 minutes. I think if we did that, we would feel much more serotonin in our brains and feel a lot better about ourselves.
I think small milestones that allow you to celebrate small moments is just a very healthy place to be. I love a list. I love a tick list. Now, there is one individual that I'm thinking of who is a phenomenal, she was my second in command. She's now running the team. She's probably the most, not only am I not this, I can't think what the word is, which is hilarious. Oh my goodness, when you just productive.
Productive. She's productive.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I work in communications and I don't know the English language. She's one of the most productive people I have ever had the pleasure of working with, learning from, empowering, all of those things. She's phenomenal. She's an absolute machine. I don't understand how she does it. People have said that about me in certain ways, but I think when you're passionate about something, you can just spin multiple plates, or it's just the way your brain is wired. But she's literally the most productive person I've ever met, and that's amazing. And she's about lists, she's about tick box and lists, and she's power through. I basically professionally used to live my life by post-its. Love a post-it. It's a very 1.0 way of working. I post it, and there was something really physical about taking the post-it off my screen or off my desk or whatever, screwing it up and throwing it in the bin. Probably not great for the planet, as I think about how much post-its I went through. But there was something about that, small milestones, small bit of serotonin, and feeling like you are progressing, because I can only speak about this from my perspective as a gay man in my 20s. it's important for me. It's important to feel like forward momentum. For me, it's important to feel like I am achieving. I think that's just. I'm sure psychologists will tell me that's because I'm a second child and blah 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 blah. But
See, I'm the first child, and I'm quite ambitious. So I don't know.
How many? First child of how many?
Just two. My sister's 2 years below me. But I'm definitely the more ambitious, I would say, out of both of us.
I'm the same in terms of my sister. She's 2 years 2 years older than me. Although academically she was September birthday, so the eldest in her year, and I was August, so the youngest in my year. So there's only a year between us.
Oh right, okay.
So we're just ridiculously close. She is an absolute legend, and is she's one of the people I talked about earlier, a professional musician, and has had significant challenges, both teaching but also playing. She also is like a really crazy, amazing dog whisperer, and so
oh wow, maybe she can come over and be like, just go be outside.
Oh no, she has been, honestly, if you see how many phone calls I make to my sister every day, he's doing this, what to do, he's doing this, what to do.
I love it.
If she had charged me for a service, she could have probably made more in the last 4 weeks than she did in the last 2 years. She missed out. See, ambition, she missed out.
Yeah. She's not a true opportunist.
Yeah. Serves you right, Janie. Yeah.
No, but as we conclude our episode, there's something I love to ask you, because I always ask my guests the same thing. If you would give back to our audience, or even your younger self, this could be a quote, a mantra, a book, a film, a person, what would you give back as an inspiration?
Okay. This is where I really regret not sleeping much last night. There's a couple of quotes. There's one quote that I definitely personally live by. And my family were all musicians. I'm the black sheep of the family. I love music. It's a hugely important part of my life. I don't have no regrets about not being in music. I was just not as talented as the rest of my family. But I listen to music in different ways. And I don't necessarily always listen to the words. I'll listen to the melody or the harmonies, or how does it make me feel? And then when I listen to the lyrics, I'm like, oh, that's what this song's about. I thought it was about something else, yada, yada. And I'm aging myself, but B, I am being very stereotypical. There is a Madonna song, which it's called Jump. It was on Confessions album, which is just an amazing album. But she speaks this line at the start of the song. And I remember when I first started running, again, sport, funny enough, didn't always come naturally to me. And it's become a really important exercise, and sport has become an important part of my life in the last 10, 15 years. And she says in this song, there's only so much you can learn in one place. The more time that you spend, the more time that you waste. Just casually flips this little lyric out. And I don't know whether she took that from anyone or whatever, but it has always, it's like, the Saint Madonna guiding me through my career, guiding me through my life. But actually, I think there's a real power to that, in terms of what, if you're not constantly learning, or do you begin to stagnate? And I actually was thinking about that as I made the decisions through the conversations with my old company about what more have I got to do here?
Yeah.
And then the other one, where actually I heard it last night for the first time, and it was, again, very stereotypical. It came from an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race, but one of the contestants said, and I wrote this down, I thought it was really interesting. If someone makes fun of you for being offbeat, you should just tell them that they just can't hear your song. And I think that comes down to authenticity and staying true to who you are, and being the best version of yourself that you can be for yourself. And I think so they're just a couple of quite gay quotes.
I love that. It's like you're dancing to a song and they're hearing that song, but they can't hear your song because you're not actually listening to the song that they're listening to. I love that.
I think the minute that you try and be something for someone else, and I definitely felt that in the workplace over the years. I don't know whether that's generational, whether that is personal. But I think representation and authenticity in the workplace is incredibly important, and more visibility in the workplace is really important. Obviously, there's been huge societal shifts and changes during the 2 years that the pandemic has been going on. But I think that's really important. I think that quote for me just talks about the fact that, you know, there's potential pressure that we're all the same, although they all act the same or think the same or all march to the beat of someone else's drum. But actually, it's about you are your best and you bring out the best in yourself, and more importantly, the best in other people when you are your most authentic, when you are your most honest. And I think that, for me, that's what that says.
I totally concur. I was speaking to someone recently about being your authentic self, and sometimes people don't know sometimes how to approach you or communicate with, because your energy or your aura is not aligned with your aura. And it doesn't mean that your energy or aura is wrong. It just means that you haven't met the same person that's on the same frequency. And I think a lot of people get really confused about their identity. And then they sort of like start to manipulate or shift or curate themselves in a certain way because they feel their frequency is not met by their surroundings. But once you meet the people that are on the same frequency, the same mindset, you're like flying. And I've realized that over the COVID recently, that I definitely was feeling a bit like, I don't know if my space and the people that I'm associating with are on the same frequency as me. And I was questioning quite a lot about my space and my frequency. And I'm like, is my frequency off? Is it just everyone else's frequency is not the same as mine? And someone said to me recently, I was like, it's because you're not communicating with the same people that are the same frequency. And you can feel it. Like when we first chatted, I was like, he's the same frequency. Like you can feel the energy is the same. Like you can feel like when the energy vibes and when it doesn't vibe, and then you go, well, actually, this could be like a friendship, or it could just be the same type of person, the same community. Right. But you feel that energy really strongly. You go, this is a person I can definitely go for breakfast with. This is definitely a person I can go for a gym with, and I can have a conversation for hours. And I think it's finding that same frequency and the same mindset that makes you go, you know what, my aura is okay. It is what it is. I don't need to change it for anyone.
Yeah, it's really interesting hearing you explain or talk about that and use descriptors like aura, frequency, energy, which are definitely words that I haven't educated myself enough around the definition of how it means or how you view it. And I find that really fascinating in terms of how you see how people work or that connection. And I guess this is probably why it's a good time that I'm taking a bit of time off. I only really think about this from like a boardroom perspective. And I think being gay, and going into a workplace and not necessarily being comfortable with my sexuality as in my younger years, to kind of owning it a little bit more in my latter years, and then actually making sure I was being visible for the people that were 20 behind me. There is definitely something about meeting people that share your energy and that immediate vibe. And you're right. And as you're talking about it, I go, oh yeah, I get it. I can see how that. And I kind of was flipping through a Rolodex in my head of, oh, and there's this person that I love. And oh, wasn't it great when I worked with that person? I haven't spoken to that person for ages. And I love that when you don't have someone in your life every day or all the time, but you have such a connection that you get a text and it's been 4 months or 2 years or 10 years, and that immediate bond is there. That always makes me feel, that's what I define as successful. That ability to have that for me, those relationships, that's personally to me success. But I also love it when you meet people that you don't have that with, and that through collaboration and through communication, talking, you can get to a point where you can see where the person is coming from, and you get to a really good place. And actually, I find those relationships or those collaborations or those moments sometimes more satisfying as a result. And you can do more things, and I learn faster. Or no, it's not true. I don't learn faster. I just I expand my knowledge. I learn something new because I don't see the world the way that they do, and it helps to share.
For sure.
I'm being pretty waffly now as we kind of come to the end of this. Like blah blah blah.
No, but it's all fact. I mean, all of these things that we're talking about is so relevant into the workspace and our human space and everything that we're encompassing. So I know that people will come away going, oh yeah, I've been feeling that, or I totally resonate with that. So I want to say thank you for being really, really open and organic and raw and open, because it's been just a joy just to talk to you. I mean, I love talking to you anyway. So.
I mean, you're right. Like, we have been talking about doing this for a while, and you were very kind. You reached out. You're like, I think you got an interesting CV and stuff. And I was like, oh, little me. Little me. I'm not the guy that talks on this. I'm the guy that helps the person who's going to talk on these. That's my job. That's what I do. But I think what has been interesting for me personally through this process, and actually just in this conversation, is I have always kind of said to myself, or I kind of said to others, and I'm sure friends will be like, yeah, you do say this, is that what you see is what you get, whether you meet me professionally or you meet me personally. I'm just kind of on a scale, and I blur my worlds together. Friendship groups, bring work home, whatever. And that's purely the nature of the job in the industry that I work in. But I've always thought of myself as a bit of amalgamation. What actually has been quite interesting in this conversation is I've really come at it from a professional sense. And all the examples and the stuff that you've been talking about that have, like, prompted questions for me I've just been thinking about it in a workspace, which maybe I'm not as on a spectrum between work and home and all those things. Maybe I am a little bit more separate. Maybe I just haven't been at work for a while.
Maybe, but we always have to remember that we're just humans, and we just occupy different spaces and different titles. But at the end of the day, we remove our titles, we're all the same.
Absolutely. Just trying to get dogs to wee outside.
Exactly. Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming on 360 Yourself. You have been 360'd. Thank you very much.
I very much appreciate it, and it's been great. Thanks for having me.
This is 360 Yourself, and I'm Jamie Neal. Thank you very much for taking a moment to listen to our wonderful guests. Please subscribe to our podcast to access all our brilliant guest episodes. They are released every Sunday at 12 p.m. We are available on all listening platforms: Spotify, Pocket Casts, Overcast, Google Podcasts, and Castro. You can also find us on Instagram at 360_yourself, Twitter at yourself360, and our host at Jamie Neal JN. Thank you for listening.